with myself, Understand Your Accent, founder Scott Swenson. So glad to have you here. We're going to be going over the consonants in English language based on manner of articulation. So we've already spent some time. If you haven't seen this already, please look over all my videos. But I've taught about all the vowels in English, and I use a tool within phonetics called the vowel quadrilateral, which is kind of drawn on my face like this if I draw it. And we go through all 19 vowel-like sounds in English. And I also went through the entire alphabet of English, every single letter as well as every single sound, sharing the International Phonetic Alphabet pronunciation of these sounds based on symbols. And now we're getting ready to go over the consonants, because when we go over consonants in phonetics are characterized by three different characteristics or dimensions. We have the place, we have the manner, and then we have the voicing. So the place is where in the mouth is the sound formed. The manner is how exactly is the sound formed. And then finally, whether or not we are activating our vocal cords in order to make that sound. So those are three things. And what we're going to do is go over the manners of articulation. So I do have a number of slides, but they're having trouble coming up here. So if you give me a second, what we can do is just talk about the the 6 manners of articulation. So we have something called stops. We have fricatives. We have nasals. Next, we have something called approximants. Next, we have laterals or lateral approximants. And then finally, we have affricates. So let's start with stops. Stops and fricatives are the two most common types, manners of articulation in English with consonants. So the first one is the stop. So the stop is kind of like how it sounds. We stop the air in our mouth and then we release it. So an example of that would be the bilabial stop unvoiced, the P sound. So we stop the air, we kind of create a backlog of air with our lips, and then we let it go and we aspirate it. That is a stop. A fricative is very different. It's where we actually create restriction with the air, but the air is able to flow through as long as we have air coming up through the lungs. And an example of a fricative is the S sound, the S sound, or even the normally we call this the F sound. It's what's known as a labial dental fricative. Bottom lip, labial, right? Top tooth, dental, labial dental, fricative. And this one is actually unvoiced. And that brings me to the next dimension when we talk about voiced or unvoiced. If it's unvoiced, the vocal cords aren't working at all. It's just acoustic air coming out through our lungs, through our throat, into our mouth and out. All right, so let's talk. So we talked about stops, we talked about fricatives. Now let's talk about nasals. So nasals are a very specific type of sound where the air is vibrating through the vocal cords, so they're always voiced, but the air doesn't come out through the lips. It's actually moved up through the nose, the nasal cavity out the nose. Okay. And then next we have the approximants. The approximants aren't truly consonants. They're more of a semi-vowel because we're not making connection with either our lips or any contact between our tongue and anywhere. So it's really more of changing the resonance within our mouth But we have three approximants that are very important, and sometimes they're known as liquids and glides. So we have the English R, the R sound, R, where the tongue is kind of down in front. It goes up near the palate and then down, and we vocalize it. R. And the interesting thing about this particular sound, we say this is the R sound, but this is really the prevocalic R sound. We can use it after vowels as well, but it's very important to understand that when we talk about R, there are actually different sounds, and everyone tries to teach it like it's the same way, and it's just not. So, R, right? R. What I'm saying now, R, that is the prevocalic before a vowel, like in red, ride, robin, right? And so that is an approximant. That is I think we call it a palatal approximant. And we'll go through that a little bit. But then we have actually that's more of a velar. Then we have the palatal, which is the y, the Y sound. So the y, also vocalized, y, yeah. And typically that is always going to follow a vowel, right? Y. And then we have the woo. This is a fascinating one. So this one is what we call a labial velar. So labial obviously means our lips. Velar refers to the velum, which is our soft palate, up in the back part of the roof of our mouth. So it's our soft palate. So the when we say velar, we're talking about up there. All right. So we were talking about stops. We were talking about fricatives, nasals, approximants. We were talking about the W sound. So what happens is we have our lips rounded, and then our back of our tongue is up near the velum. So this is a labial velar, and we activate our vocal cords, but we're kind of pushing the air out. So those are the three approximants. We do have a lateral approximant. There's just one, and it's actually the velar. So when we're talking about places in the mouth where we actually create sound, we have the labia, our lips. We have dental, our teeth. Our tongue is going to be a part of a lot of this, so we don't necessarily mention the tongue a lot, except for we do a couple times. We do when we talk about well, actually we don't. It's actually when we talk about interdental, between teeth, we refer to the tongue, but we don't mention it, right? So we don't mention lingua, which is the tongue. We say interdental. We have labial dental, right? We have something up here behind our front teeth. There's a ridge back here. That's called the alveolar ridge, A-L-V-E-O-L-A-R, alveolar ridge. So this is the velar place. We have the hard palate. We have lots of sounds made there. And then we just talked about the velum. So when we talk about the velum and where sounds are made back there, we call those velar, all right? And then we have the glottis, which is actually beneath the mouth in the throat. And we have a couple sounds there in English as well. This is where we can actually stop where the air coming up from the throat. All right? We good? All right, so we talked about that lateral, right, is an alveolar lateral, the L sound. It is voiced. And what happens is when we turn on our vocal cords and put our tongue up there and allow the sound, the air to go around or laterally around the tongue, la, 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 we create the L. And then last but not least, we have a manner of articulation called an affricate. An affricate is very interesting because it's a combination of stops and fricatives. So we are going to start with a stop and then go into a fricative. And if you'll give me a moment, I'm going to try to bring this up. Trying to kill some time here. Well, my computer works. All right, so manners of articulation. Let's talk about our stops. So again, stops are where the air is stopped somewhere in our mouth and then released. So if we talk about stops in the English language, we have 7 of them. And the interesting thing when we're going through the consonants like this is what you're going to find is with fricatives and stops, you're going to have a lot of sounds that share the same place in the same manner. And the only difference is whether or not they have, they're vocalized. All right. So when we talk about the bilabial stop, we have the p sound, which is represented with the P. Or if we turn on for vocal cords, it's the b sound. So when we say p, we try to hum when we say pa, p, p, p. What happens is when we turn our vocal cords, that turns into a B, right? So B and P are the bilabial stops. The P is unvoiced, the B is voiced. Next, let's go to the alveolar ridge, right? We have 2 stops. We have the unvoiced, which is t, 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 as in T. And the voice, when we turn on our vocal cords, the d, 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 D. Next, we move back to the velar, or the velum, I should say, this is the soft palate. Our velar stops are unvoiced, the k, 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 and the voice, the g, 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 g. So we have 2, 4, 6, and then we just have one, what we call glottal stop, that's actually down here in the glottis. And we use this. This isn't a phonemic sound. We use this as an alternate sound in very special situations, usually through what we call the medial T. So an example of this is in bottle or battle, okay, where we have a T in the middle of a word. In this case, we have 2 T's. Typically in English, and especially, well, yeah, in English, and I'll share American English, I'll give you the 3 sounds. So we have the regular sound. If we say it the way that it's spelled, we use that T, which is unvoiced, and it's battle, right? Battle. Typically, Americans will use what's called a flapped T. So when they go up and they put their tongue up on the alveolar ridge, bat, they don't release that T, and there's no unvoiced, there's no acoustic air aspiration coming out of the mouth. So it's just stopped as battle. And so when you stop it and then you start with the vocalized vowels, it sounds like a D. It's not technically a D, but it sounds like a D. And so we basically teach it like it is a D, but I like to share the kind of the science behind how that works. It's bat, and we put our tongue on the teeth, but we don't release a battle. And so it sounds like battle with the D. So we have battle, but then the glottal stop, we're going to say battle. And so battle and battle are all with the tongue up behind our teeth. Battle is actually down here with this, actually closing the glottis to keep the sound from going up, right? So that's the glottal stop. So when we talk about stops, we're actually talking about 7. 2, 4, 6, 7, right? Next we have fricatives. Fricatives we have 9. So we are going to start with the labial dental, lip and teeth, okay? We have our unvoiced, which is the And then when we start humming, when we say the F, is what I mean by that is when I say start humming, in order to hum, what happens is you actually activate your vocal cords. You're voicing the sound. So when we go and start humming, we turn that from an F into a V, all right? And you can feel it because the vibrations from the vocal cords start to come up not only in the throat, but it starts to tickle your lips, maybe even your tongue, right? So we have the labial dental, the F and V. We have the interdental, which means that our tongue is between our teeth, F and V. So F is unvoiced, V is voiced. Then we have something called the alveolar fricatives. And I actually call these, because just the way that I make them, instead of alveolar, I actually call them postdental, because the tongue is right behind the teeth. And the fricative is the air is coming through, right? And so the unvoiced version is s, like a hissing snake. S. And when we voice it, if we start to hum while making the snake sound, s, our snake becomes a buzzing bumblebee. S, right? Now, if we have another fricative where our tongues, so we have what we did 2, 4, 6, okay. And then we have our tongue behind the alveolar ridge, not on it, but right behind it. We have the sh sound that if we're in the library and we're too loud, we're told shh. And then if you hum while saying shh, shh, that turns into that like weird ZH or G sound, right? Like the G in beige, the Z in seizure, or the S in measure, right? Those are all found post-alveolar. Those are fricatives. Then we have one more fricative, which is the glottal fricative, and that's the H sound. So it's almost like we're breathing heavily. This one is actually unvoiced, so it's all right, so those are the fricatives. Next we have three nasals. And again, nasals are where we voice the sound, and that voiced energetic sound is being forced up through the nasal cavity out of our nose. And depending on where we start with that, it's a different type of nasal. So the first one, a bilabial nasal. Nasals are always voiced. The M, the alveolar, n, na, 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 the N sound. And then we have the like in ring, sing, ding, dong, song. We don't have the sound in the beginning of words, but we definitely have it in the middle and the end of words. Those are the nasals. I already talked about the approximants. We have the r, the y, and the w, right? I already talked about the lateral, the L, la, 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 la. But now let's talk about the affricates. These are really, really interesting in my opinion. This is a combination of a stop and a fricative, right? So a very important one is the sh. It's not the sh, it's the ch sound. So the ch sound, the ch, is actually a combination. If we take the sh, remember sh is unvoiced, right? And remember, if we're talking about an affricate, we're talking a combination of a stop and a fricative. So if we're using this fricative, shh, and we add the alveolar stop to it, since the sh is voiceless, we're going to add a voiceless alveolar stop, which is the T. So the T plus the sh equals the ch. And here's something kind of interesting. If you voice that, so remember the sh voiced. So if we hum while saying sh, sh, if we add the voice stop to that, which is the D, j, j, we actually create the J sound. So those are all the consonants. Are those all the consonants? Yeah. From stops, fricatives, nasal, approximants, laterals, and affricates. Those are all the English sounds by manner of articulation. I hope you found that useful. It was nice talking to you guys. Take care.